Okay, so part two of this situation that I dealt with a couple years ago, between me and my uncle's company and me trying to do the best that I can to look out for my brother after a very suspicious situation had occurred. Um, if you have not watched part one, go ahead and watch it. It is a bit it's lengthier than I wanted it to be. If the video is too long, feel free to click on the gear in the top right corner of the video. I'm not sure what side it's going to be, but if you put your finger on the screen, you'll see a gear, and you click on that. For those who don't know, if you click on that, you can actually increase the speed of the video, to, I don't know, yeah, help it go by faster. Just yeah, for those who don't know, that you can do that with YouTube videos. Or I don't know if I'm going to post this on Rumble or not. But yeah, so continuing the story, um where was I? Okay, so we had this staff meeting after me finding the pill, me letting the PC know, and and then the tensions occurring between my coworkers and I for some reason. Me getting the silent treatment from my coworkers. So yeah, things were getting, pretty, I guess, like tense, to the point where a meeting was called. Like I said, myself, my two coworkers, Mary and Nancy. These are made up names. All these names are made up, real people, made up names. Um, Mary's sister, who worked in the office as the human resources person, Jocelyn, she was also there. My aunt Vivian was also there, who also worked in the office under my uncle's company. My uncle was not there. Like I said, there was another lady who was at the meeting via speakerphone, so she was not physically present, but she was on the phone, hearing the meeting. And so yeah, like I said in the other video, I was expecting this meeting to be about, where did this pill come from? Where did this Unison pill come from? Why did it show up in the home randomly on the table? Um, it's not something that is prescribed to my brother. It's not a pill that is prescribed to his roommate. Because my brother did have he did have one roommate who is his roommate. I don't believe his roommate has any sort of disability, at least not that I was aware of. But his roommate does not speak, and he doesn't speak as a trauma response to something that happened to him when he was a little bit younger. I don't think I'm gonna share that on here, but something traumatic happened to him that, to where, like, he has the ability to speak and communicate. But he just, after that traumatic event happened to him, he kind of shut down and he no longer speaks. That's my brother's roommate. Um, so yes. But yeah, continuing on. We had this meeting. Like I said, I thought we were going to get to the bottom of this, this pill situation. And instead, the meeting was about how I am causing conflict in the house, and how I'm being rude to my coworkers, which was not the truth. But they said that I was being rude to them. They were lying about things that I was doing. One of the women, specifically Nancy, um, she put on this show where she started crying. And it's funny because, like, she started to, like, say something about me. She's like, that girl, and then pointed at me, and then just, like, broke out in tears, like, just putting on this display of dramatics, this dramatic display, making me look like the bad guy. That's basically, in short, what the meeting was about. It was about throwing me under the bus, making me look like the bad guy. I'm the problem. But it's funny because, like, I'm the one who found the pill, and all I'm trying to do is get to the bottom of it and find out, why did I find this in the house amidst the really bad timing of people complaining that my brother is not sleeping at night, that he's not sleeping through the night. So that's what the meeting ended up being about. It was just more about like the tension that's going on and how I'm being rude to the staff. I did this, I did that. And I didn't even get into like the disrespectful things that were happening towards me because I wasn't concerned about that. I didn't care. Um, I mean, I did explain to them like the silent treatment and how they started the silent treatment towards me, but ultimately I didn't care about any of that. I just want to know what's going on. Do I need like is that do we have a problem? Um, do we have a problem in terms of my I was just concerned for my brother's safety, because I obviously I was only working one shift there and I couldn't be there with him the entire time, and that was really nerve-wracking for me. I remember that in itself, just like, knowing that my brother is no longer under my parents' care and he is now being put under the care of people who I did putting under the care of people who I don't know. Um, I think that's actually something that I said to Nancy, that I think that was something that that kind of offended her, was that cause I told her that, because she kept saying like, oh, like, we're family, and again, we're only related by marriage, but she's like, oh, like, we're family, like, I wouldn't do that, referring to, me finding that pill. She's like, I wouldn't do something like that. And she kept talking about how we're family. And I said to her one day, I was just like, hey, like, well, yes, we're family, but I haven't known you that long. Um, the fact that we're related by marriage doesn't really mean much to me. I didn't say that in those words, but I told her like, yes, we're family, but I've only known you for a couple months. So you using the argument of I wouldn't do that because we're family, or, insinuating that like, oh, I should trust you because we're family. That doesn't mean anything to me because, one, we're not even family by blood. And even that wouldn't cause me to just like automatically trust you. But two, I don't know you very well, and I'm legitimately and reasonably suspicious after finding this thing, after finding this pill in the house. And yeah, it didn't look good. It didn't look good. And I think, I think it makes a lot of sense as to why it doesn't look good. Um, but yeah, so we never got to the bottom of that. I still don't have any answers. I only have the information that I know. I also had There's some things that other people have told me that do not work for the company. I don't want to implicate these people, but other people have told me things that have given me a little bit more input, a little bit more information. Um, and yeah, but I don't know. I mean, that meeting was just very disappointing because we nothing was really accomplished aside from, we all decided to put our differences aside, and me and the two other women working in the house. But I still didn't have any answers, and that was the only thing that really mattered to me. I still, don't have any definitive answers as to where that pill came from and why it was in the house. And it's very serious. It was very nerve-wracking. Like I said, my brother is still is still with that company. As I speak right now, he is still in that same home, but I am no longer working there because I had to quit, because even after that meeting, when we put our differences aside, Nancy in particular, who was the friend of the family, who has a very um so like I said, both of those women who I was working with are not strangers to bending the truth and lying. That I mean that's just what it is. But Nancy in particular is what I would call a malignant narcissist. And that whole thing where she was like, I would come into work in the morning, and she was the night shift, so I would come into work in the morning to relieve her so she could leave and go back to her apartment upstairs. Um, me coming to work and her answering the door and not saying hello to me, that continued even after we put our differences aside. I think it stopped for a little bit, but for whatever reason, like there were still times I would come to work, I would say hello to her. And this is an older woman, by the way. They were both like both of these women were old enough to like to be grandmothers. One of them actually is a grandmother. I think both of them actually are grandmothers. Um, but Nancy in particular, like I said, just a very destructive, um, malicious, crooked person, who I don't care for, who is still working with my brother, by the way. I quit, mainly because of her. Because, like I said, she was still continuing to not speak to me for whatever reason. Whenever I went into work, I would get there, she would open the door, I would say hello, she wouldn't say anything. And matter of fact, there was one day where I was like, okay, I'm just gonna stop saying hello to her. Like, why am I saying hello to someone who doesn't respond? I was just trying to be nice. But so there was one day where I was just like, okay, I'm not going to say hello to her. So she opens the door, she doesn't say anything, I don't say anything, and then I walk in, and then she has the nerve to reprimand me for not saying hello to her. She's like, you don't greet? She's like, you're not gonna greet me? And I was just like, I just looked at her crazy because what? How is it okay? I mean, I don't even need to get into like how ridiculous that is, but that's kind of like what I mean when I say that there was like a sense of like mental abuse going on. You don't speak to someone, you want that person to speak to you when they see you, but you don't want to respond. And if they don't, in the day that I decide I'm not going to speak to you, you reprimand me for that. And, I also want to add that all of these people, like I said, I'm West African by heritage. So, as they're in part, my family is also West African. So all of these people that I'm dealing with are also African. And there's sort of this like toxic, very toxic African culture where younger people are supposed to sort of like cower to their elders, um, even if it means that these younger people are being disrespected. So in this case, even though I'm a grown woman, who is dealing with women who are dealing with women who are also grown women, and are supposed to be very mature and carry themselves with respect and dignity, which these women did not. These coworkers of mine, they expected me to just like deal with their nonsense, like like I just said, that woman expected me to say hello to her every morning when I came to work. And she, in her mind, like it's okay for her to not say hello to me, but she expected me to say hello to her because it's a respect thing. So that's why she felt like she could reprimand me for not saying hello to her. Like I said, this is sort of a very like sort of like toxic aspect of West African culture, in my opinion, where just because I'm younger than her, I'm supposed to just deal with again, just this narcissistic stupidity. So yeah, so this is all just me I'm just scratching the surface of some of the things that I dealt with in that house. There were people who continued to tell lies about me, telling my uncle that I wasn't doing anything in the house, essentially telling my uncle that I wasn't doing my job. Because my uncle confronted me about this one day when I went to him about a serious issue. When I went to him to tell him that I don't feel comfortable in the house because I'm being alienated, I am being treated like pariah in the house. And then he responded to that by reprimanding me and saying that like people are telling him that I don't do anything. It's like, well, first of all, if people are telling you that, why am I just now hearing this from you? Why didn't you pull me aside to talk to me about it? It just seems like he was trying to not respond to the concern that I was bringing to him. So I don't even know. There's so many things wrong with this company and how it's being ran. And to be honest, I would ultimately like to get my brother out of there. And I am now working on um, getting conservatorship over my brother. I am working towards being added to the conservatorship that my father has over my brother. My myself and my half brother, we are working to get added to the conservatorship that my father has over my brother, so we can start making decisions. And when the day comes, I feel inevitably I will have to remove my brother from this company because I'm very unhappy. There's been so many other things that have happened. If y'all want to hear more about this situation, leave a comment, because there's a lot of other stuff that's been going on, and it's just been out of my hands for me to do anything about it, which has also been very frustrating, very damaging to me and my mental health, that I can't help my brother and look out for him in the way that I want to. Um, because my father thinks that he's better off at this company with family. Uh, my father thinks that he's better off there than at a company where there's no family and we don't know anybody. Which I kind of understand that, but at the same time, I'm kind of at the point where things can't get any worse than this, and any worse than what I've been experiencing with this company, both as an employee and as a sister to one of their clients, my brother. I'm just very unhappy. Um, so yeah, so that's why I say I feel like I will inevitably have to remove my brother from there, and honestly, just not associate with. I don't have an issue with every family member that works for the company, but I do have an issue with the people who made a bad situation even worse. And I really would like to separate myself from these people. Um, so yeah. All right. So should I make a part three? Okay. Hmm. Okay. No, I'm gonna try and I'm gonna try and tie this in. Okay. So here's where the parallel comes in with Elphaba and what Elphaba sort of went through, I guess, like in the Emerald City of Oz. Uh, and again, this is just based off of the movie, specifically the first movie. Um, so Elphaba, for those of you who have seen the movie and are familiar with the story, again, I have not seen the musical. I don't know if the musical is different. I don't know. The book, I think, actually is different from maybe the movie and the musical. I heard that the book is actually like much darker. Like there's like the book is like very there's like some violent, much more violent themes in in the book Wicked. But I haven't read the book. But again, this is just based off of the movie. So Elphaba, in the movie, she, again, spoiler alert, she goes to Oz. If you're not familiar with the story, she goes to Oz and she meets the wizard, and she discovers that the wizard, not only does he not have any real powers, any magical powers like he is known to, not only does he not have any real powers, but he has been doing some shady stuff where he has been trying to remove the animals in the movie and the story. The wizard was trying to like remove the animals' ability to speak. And Yeah, so she finds out about all this stuff and all of the corruption that's actually going on at Oz, and she finds out that they are actually using her to, because Elphaba has real magical powers, and that that she finds out that they were just using her to gain more power over the animals, and turn the monkeys into flying monkeys and make them into spies. And yeah, she discovers all of this corruption, and then once she discovers the corruption, she is then immediately turned into the enemy. Um, and she flees Oz, and she finds her empowerment, and she's like, okay, like I'm going to save these animals, and I'm going to rebel against this evil. Um, so basically, I feel like that's the experience that I had at my uncle's company. As soon as I found out that there was something shady going on with me finding that Unisom pill, I was then completely made into the enemy. Like I said, I was made into the enemy at that meeting that we had, and then it was like people were privy to the fact that I was privy to what was going on. And, like I said, people were lying to my uncle about me. My uncle came up against me. People are still trying to gaslight me about the situation, and people are still trying to throw dirt on my name. I know that this is still happening. Nancy, in particular, was spreading a lot of rumors about me. She told my cousin, who was her daughter-in-law. I found out later on that she told my cousin that I had been shouting at her, which could not be farther from the truth. And the thing is, anybody that knows me knows that I am not somebody who shouts. I am not somebody who gets angry very often. I have to be continuously provoked to be angry. And I think a lot of people know that about me. And my cousin even said that, like, when Nancy told her that, she was just like, huh? Like, that doesn't really sound like her. And yeah, so, um, again, I don't want to directly accuse anyone, but the people who were causing the most trouble, the person who was causing the most trouble is the person who I suspect um, uh, may have brought that pill. Or again, I'm gonna let y'all draw your own conclusions. Whoever may come across this video. But yeah, in short, I was very much made into the enemy. The focus was quickly shifted away from where did this pill come from, and it was um, more so about how I'm causing problems in the house and about how I'm being disrespectful and I'm shouting at people and all this stuff. And none of this happened until I found something very suspicious, and I became suspicious, and I raised hell about it. And I raised hell about it in the form of just like asking questions and bringing it to the attention of the people who were in charge. And the situation was not handled well, and it still is not being handled well. I don't expect it to ever get handled well. Um, so yeah, so that's the parallel between Elphaba and I, and I just also really relate to being an outcast like Elphaba is. Even like in the first movie, you see how whenever she enters a room or whenever she gets around people, people sort of like they they don't want to look at her, they don't want to touch her, like they treat her like she's because she's green, obviously she's all green, and that's not normal, and people treat her like she's a monster. And that's kind of how I've felt in my life, especially with this specific situation. But even when I go to certain public places, I think the way that I dress sometimes, I think maybe throws people off a little bit. I tend to wear a lot of black. And I don't know, I have this little septum. This is a fake piercing, by the way, but I have this fake septum piercing. I think I live in an area where not a lot of people look like me. I live in a predominantly white area, and on top of that, I think people can tell looking at me that I'm not. Um, I think I look like I'm not maybe American, and I think I also don't talk the same way as the people in this area. People often ask me where I'm from, so I very much feel like somewhat of an outcast, but I definitely feel like I stick out like a sore thumb wherever I go as well, like Elphaba. And yeah, that movie it was so inspiring because Elphaba, she doesn't really care what people think about her at all. And I'm just like, man, like I'm gonna start like like I've already started to care a lot less what people think about me. But that movie was a strong reminder to celebrate your differences and not be afraid to be different. And like I said, I recommend the movie. And if you're someone who also feels like an outcast in society or whatever in your family, you feel like the black sheep of your family, like I very much do, celebrate that and and embrace that, because it's really special. And it's I don't know, I feel like I've been learning how to celebrate myself and how to celebrate my strangeness and my differences from the people around me. And yeah, and I've learned how to alchemize the alchemize like the polarity of people who don't people who may not like me and may not like the fact that I stood up for my brother, and I upset the status quo, and I didn't let, people get away with certain things. And yeah, I'm just, and like I said, I'm still fighting. I'm still fighting. And the conservatorship, we have filed a petition with the court that they've already accepted, and now we just have to go for a court hearing next month. Um, and yeah, so it's, progress is being made, and I'm really proud of myself for taking action the best that I can. But yeah, I very much feel like Elphaba, and I just see so much of myself in her. And um, yeah, I think that, I mean, that's pretty much, that's the gist of it. I may make a part three to this. I probably will, to talk more about Elphaba, and maybe even a little bit about Glinda, and just some stuff about the movie that I thought was interesting. So it'll be a part. Yeah, I probably will make a part three, but probably tomorrow, and it'll just be a loose addition to the rest of this, this situation. Um, but yeah, is there anything else I wanted to say? I don't know. I guess I'll put it in the third part. But ooh, okay. I had to burp. Excuse me. But yeah, so that's pretty much, that's gonna be it for tonight. And if you've sat through the first part in its entirety and sat through this second part, thank you so much for listening. Like I said, this is something that's really important to me, and I really wanted to share it with someone, anyone. And it's, like I said, it's a very upsetting and unsettling situation, especially the fact that there's family involved. Um, and like I said in my very first video that I posted on this channel, I was going to talk a lot about family. None of my family members know about this channel. Actually, literally no one that I know knows about this channel, and hopefully it'll stay that way, at least, for the longest time being. But yeah, but either, I don't care if someone comes across it. I don't care. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this if you've made it to the end. And yeah, I guess stay tuned for part three.